Hey guys, Ray from Lovey RV. So I'm back with part 3 of my review of the EcoFlow Delta Max portable power station and its solar panel. This is a 400 watt folding panel that they sent out. So fair disclosure, these parts were sent to me for free. I've done 2 videos on this system. One was an intro and went through all the features, and the other was a lot of demoing and test runs of different appliances and equipment, charge and discharge tests. So I'll link back to those if you missed those. This is more just a final kind of conclusion after using it. I've been out boondocking pretty well straight for 2 months, and this has been powering systems in our RV. So I've gotten quite a handle on it. It actually is honestly one of my favorite power stations I've tested so far. I've tested several of the Jackery units and also a Blue Eddy unit and a Lion Energy Safari ME unit. And this one I think is, out of the 3, my favorite for several different reasons. So let's just go through all my likes, and then after that there is some kind of dislikes, things that are kind of negatives to this box, and we'll go through those too. So let's get to it. Okay, let's start with the build quality as far as the design of the case and everything goes. It uses pretty good plastic. It's got a very attractive design, I'll give it that. Also, I love the small size given the power of it. I haven't come across anything that has this small a size given the big 2400 watt inverter in it and 2000 watt hour battery. The case measures around 19.6 inches by 9.5 inches by 12 inches tall. So that lets me store it in a lot of different places, especially in my basement storage compartment. Some of the other ones I've tested didn't fit in there just because they were a lot taller. At 48 pounds, it's hefty, but it's pretty easy to move around. Also, they've molded a couple handles into it that makes it easy for 2 people to carry. So overall, good marks for the case design, size, and weight. The layout of the switches is fine and no problems there. On one side, you have your display. It's quite bright, has lots of information on the display. And then you've got your USB layout there. On the other side, more the business end, you have 6 20 amp plugs, AC plugs, and also your DC. The switches are nicely molded into the case. So the fans are fairly quiet, probably the quietest I've come across with something this big. They're not super annoying. I like the tone of it. I carry it in my basement storage compartment and run it down there, and I can barely hear it when I'm in the living area of the RV. This fan noise kind of bothers me, so it's a really important thing for me in these things is it's not super annoying fan noise. Let's get into the charging. That's where this thing really shines. It has super fast charging. The plug-in AC part of it can charge up to 1800 watts, which is awesome for charging. Say you have to get a quick charge into it at home or on shore power or with a generator, you can basically fully recharge this thing in just over an hour, which is nice. You can also double charge, so you can have AC charging and solar charging, and the solar can charge up to 800 watts at maximum, which is nice too. That's on the higher end of comparable boxes, but you can do both solar and AC charging, which some boxes don't do. So you can get really up there, 2600 watts or something. I love the Bluetooth app that gives you a display on your phone of what's going on inside the box, and also lets you control it via the app on your phone, so you can turn things on and off, features on and off. So that's quite handy. You can also upgrade the firmware with that. It seems to work quite well. It can work through Wi-Fi. It has a little Wi-Fi hotspot, that access point that it creates, and then you turn on the Bluetooth. So you don't need to be on the internet to control it, but you can also switch to a cloud format where you can, I guess, control it or see things through the internet. It also has expandable batteries. So the battery in this is 2016 watt hours, which is pretty substantial. But you can also add 2 other expandable batteries of the same. So you can go up to 6,048 watt hours if you want. So that's kind of important. If you get one of these and you find it's not quite enough power, you can add an extra battery. It also has a feature where you can actually they actually have their own gas generator that you can hook into this thing. And if this battery is running low, you can set a point where you'd like that gas generator to turn on, recharge this, and then turn off all automatically. So that's kind of cool. The inverter on it is one of the better ones I've used so far. A lot of the ones I've tested were 2,000 watt inverters. This is a 2,400 watt inverter with a 5,000 watt surge, really high surge, and it's had no problem running anything in our fifth wheel trailer. Even the air conditioner, microwave runs quite happily. It puts out 120 volts of AC, so it's right up there at the higher end of that. Some of them they'll cheat and kind of do a 110 volts so that they're able to kind of run higher wattage items, but it's better to have a 120. I think things run a little better at that. Although there is something on this thing, an extra feature called Xboost. I don't think I'll use it much, but it's there, and what it does is allow you to run up to 3,600 watt items. But what it kind of does in my testing is it lowers the AC voltage a bit, so it's not good for certain items that are more sensitive to the voltage. But things like hot plates, anything with an element in it, like a heater or stuff, you could run more things off of this box without it overloading. Another interesting feature it has is it can be used as a UPS, as a backup power supply. So you can have it plugged into, say, home power, and then have stuff plugged into it like a computer. And then if your power goes out, there's a 30 millisecond switch over time where it'll automatically switch over and be powered off these batteries. Another handy feature that the EcoFlow Delta Max has is it can charge at different rates on your AC input. So I can go in there and set anywhere from 200 watts to the full 1,800 watts in 100 watt increments. So that's a feature I haven't seen in too many of these boxes, and it's really helpful for me if I say I want to use a generator and my generator can't put out the full charging wattage. I can set it to what I like. So if I'm using the generator for something else at one time, I can set this at a lower charging rate. Also, I can use my other batteries and inverter to charge this and set it at a certain rate. So I find that as a very handy feature and really like that. So that's about it for my pros or likes. Let's get into some of the, well, first let's talk about the solar panel they sent out. It was a 400 watt folding solar panel. It folds up quite small for 400 watts, and it's not super heavy to carry around, but when you unfold it, it can be a little unwieldy as it's kind of flopping around everywhere. It does seem to put out close to the 400 watt rating. I've tried it in full sun and got up around 380, 390 watts when I have it tilted. When I lie it flat, it's around late March here, and I'm getting pretty close to 300 watts when it's flat on the ground. A couple dislikes, though, is I don't like the stand at all. It came with a stand that's part of its case, which is kind of nice, but it's only really viable if you don't have much wind at all. I decided to leave the stand out. I bungeed it to some extra supports, a ladder, and my table. And I let her go in some pretty strong winds, and I have a little bit of a video footage for you of how it coped with it was about 25 mile an hour, 30 mile an hour gusting, but it was coming to the back side of it, so it starts to become like a sail, and it was ready to blow right over. Now, if I hadn't had it bungeed, that thing would have been gone. But like I say, you can lay it flat and stake it to the ground. You just give up maybe 25 or 30% of your power. As far as the box goes, the the Delta Max. Here's some of the dislikes or cons that it would have compared to others. Its battery lifespan. The batteries in there, they use a different chemistry than some other boxes, like the Lion Energy box I reviewed and the Blue Eddy. They both had lithium iron phosphate batteries, and they're very long lasting. They go around 3,000 charge cycles before they're down to 80%. That seems to be 80%, seems to be an industry standard for measuring that, whereas this is 800 full charge cycles before it's down to 80% of its original capacity. Now I talked to them, and that's full charge cycles. So if you do only use 25% one day and recharge, that only counts as a quarter of a life cycle. So you'd have to look at how often you're going to use this box, whether you're going to use it for just the odd time on weekends or as backup power, or your full time and you're going to use it every day and do big deep discharges every day. But I think personally it'll probably be okay, because by the time this thing's probably going to last 5 to 10 years, and by that time technology changes so much that you'll want something different. Also, I don't like that there's no high amperage DC output. The highest amperage you can output DC is through the cigarette lighter type power socket, and that's 10 amps. Some of the other boxes had 25 amp outputs. I'd like to see these boxes put out like something you could use to power the DC loads in your RV. Most RVs need about at least 30 amps to run motors and things, and most of them have a 60 amp. So it'd be nice if they had a high amperage DC output that you could wire right into your RV load center, and then you could power all your DC stuff off it. At this time, if you want to incorporate it into your RV, you're still going to need some type of battery system in your RV, I feel. Mention that it is an overseas production. I think they have distribution in the US, but it's not as good as having a US based company like the Lion Energy is in Utah. You can phone them up and talk to them there. And shipments of parts and stuff come right out of the US, whereas this stuff's more coming out of China or wherever they're building them. So sometimes the support cannot be quite as good. I don't know for sure. I haven't had any experience with their support system yet. And finally, the big downfall I find to all these power stations is you got all your eggs in one basket. Like you've got your solar charger in there, you've got your batteries all in there, you've got your inverter in there, and displays and plugs. So if something goes wrong in that box, it's not something you can take to a local repair shop or anything. You're going to have to deal with the company, and then you're going to be stuck sending it away or getting stuff sent out to you and packed. So it's kind of a hassle versus if you build a system out of separate components, like my original RV system has, separate batteries and inverters and things like that. So there's a little more redundancy in that aspect of it. So that's one thing. But on the flip side, it is totally portable. You can use it in your RV. You can go back and use it in your house. You can use it in a cabin or whatever. And also, you're not paying somebody labor to install all this stuff in your RV. So there's kind of drawbacks and pros to each of that. Well, there you go. Hope you found these review videos useful if you're considering a power box. And I'm going to keep using this for a while, so you might see me come back with more videos on it, especially if something goes wrong with it. And also, I just did a recent video on how I use it and incorporate it into my existing system, so I'll link to that if you missed that. Till next time, Ray from LoveYouRV.com. Cheers, everyone.